can't believe I'm saying this, but January of 2023 is already over. It felt like such a quick month. I don't know where all the time went. It feels like just yesterday that I was talking to you guys about my game of the year for 2022 and opining that I'd like to get together with you guys every month and talk about my favorite games that I played. Well, it's that time again, isn't it? This time, however, I'm not going to be doing 3 games because I feel like I don't have a whole bunch of time to round up this time. I'm not talking about the entirety of a year. I'm talking about just 1/12 of that amount of time, and I can't really do 1/12 of 3 games, so I'm going to do 1/3 of 3 games. I'm going to talk about my favorite game of January 2023, but before I do that, I do want to talk about some of the games that I played that didn't quite make the cut. I'm talking about games that were either smaller and fun, but just didn't kind of have that I'm going to remember this forever quality, or games that I enjoyed that maybe just didn't have that special something that pushes it over the top to be my favorite game that I played. Of course, this is my list. Your list may very well be different, but I want to talk about some of the things that I enjoyed and maybe 1 or 2 things that I didn't love so much that happened in January, and get your take on what it is that you enjoyed or what you didn't enjoy. For me, January started with a wonderful surprise in the form of Vengeful Moonrider. It's a 16-bit action platformer that's highly reminiscent of just about everything I love from the 16-bit era. You take on the role of a cyborg ninja who is tasked with taking out his fellow cyborg ninjas. It's basically Shinobi 3 with a bit of Mega Man and like the tiniest splash of E-SWAT. You can dash, you can attack with your sword, you can do a dive kick. It feels like a spiritual successor to the Shinobi series until you get to your boss fights. When a boss fight happens, you jump right into the action, you get a life bar on the side. It completely shifts vibe to feeling almost exactly like a much grittier take on Mega Man X. And there's some of that signature Sega Shinobi body horror mixed within. And then when you get out of levels, you can actually slot in upgrades, which for me adds that kind of dash of E-SWAT. If you're not familiar with E-SWAT, it was a game where you played a cop who, for whatever reason, slowly became more cybernetic as the game went on. It really felt like they wanted to make a RoboCop game and nobody let them, so Sega just kind of made their own thing. But it's a wonderful game. It's only about 4 hours. I can't recommend it enough. You should absolutely go try it. It's worth your time, and if you're not used to how hard 16-bit platformers were, you might struggle with this one a little bit, but I absolutely recommend it. It is like an encapsulation of what made the Genesis so great. Speaking of surprises, and maybe jumping forward in time a little bit, I have to mention just how absolutely thrilled I am with HiFi Rush. HiFi Rush was a game that literally came out of nowhere. I heard that it had leaked. I didn't see those leaks. Ash didn't see those leaks. So during Microsoft's developer direct towards the end of the month, we both just popped off. It was crazy to see this beautiful, colorful, gorgeously animated game from Tango Gameworks that it's a rhythm action game. I, for one, have wanted rhythm games to expand out of the silo they exist in for a long time, and developers have tried and not, in my eyes, been very successful with it. So this was really cool to see that we finally got an action game that has what in my mind are AAA production values, a banging soundtrack, and just over-the-top gorgeous animation and art direction. And it was day one, shadow dropped on Game Pass, and it's not even a AAA game despite, well, it's not at a AAA price. It's a budget title. Everything about this game is just perfection. I absolutely love HiFi Rush, and it was this close to making Game of the Month for me. It was a really hard toss-up between it and the game that ultimately won, which I'll be talking about just a little bit later, but absolutely go check out HiFi Rush. It's worth your time. I'm not super far in, but what I've played, I've absolutely adored. I had to make this video, so I had to stop playing that game. I'm gonna go back to it probably as soon as I finish editing, but HiFi Rush is just a joy through and through. It's absolutely worth your time. I know Ash will agree with me, and if he makes a video like this, I'm almost certain that it will be his game of the month. But before I get too joyous about everything, I did say I was going to talk about something I didn't like, and we gotta talk about Forespoken. I did not click with this game at all. I don't think most people did. The action feels watered down and not engaging. Spell effects can look cool sometimes, but the dialogue just had me looking for the mute button on my remote. Traversal, which was by far the most interesting thing I'd seen in the trailers, just didn't feel satisfying in actual play. I got the demo of the game, I tried the demo, I played through it a couple times just to give it kind of a fair shake and see if maybe it was just me not getting used to the controls or not understanding how things worked. And the more I played it, the less I liked it. Forespoken, despite being a game that I was hyped for because I love the protagonist design, I love elements of the world. I think it can look beautiful and stunning in the right light, but it just didn't work for me. Unfortunately, Forespoken was one that it was easy for me to decide not to pick up. The demo kind of sealed its fate. Square needs to stop doing these demos with games like Balan Wonderworld, where it's just easy. Like, the demo makes it easy for you not to buy the game. I probably would have picked it up had I not played that demo. So I guess thanks for saving me some money, Square, but better luck next time. All right, so if you know me, you know that this was a game I was very excited for. On January 27th, just a few days before recording this video, we got GoldenEye, both on NSO and on Xbox, and I've played both, and I love both, but for me, the Nintendo Switch Online version is easily, hands down, the version I want to play, not just because of the online play, and you can kind of finagle your way into dual analog with the Nintendo Switch Online version, but the big draw for me is being able to play this on an N64 controller on a Nintendo platform. It just feels like I'm back home. I played this game when it came out. I was a young teen at the time. My friend and I would stay up all night coming up with silly ways to play multiplayer, and I can't wait to share that with people. It is not a great game by today's standards in terms of just the mechanics because of what was available at the time. Obviously, it was hamstrung by the design of the N64 controller having only one analog stick, and that led to a very aggressive auto-aim that you can't really correct, right? Because it's just baked in. But there are ways to do dual analog, but they're really needlessly complicated. Nintendo made some modifications to this game. You're able to play in widescreen, which I don't think was a thing in the original game. It's the only N64 game that I know of on NSO where you can get rid of the borders. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. But they also removed the unused other James Bond faces. So clearly Nintendo was willing to make some concessions and some changes to get this game onto Nintendo Switch Online. I just wish they'd gone just a little bit further and included native Switch control options, because it needs it. It's so much better of a game when you have dual analog, and the Xbox version has that, and it's an easier game to play by leaps and bounds. And multiplayer with modern controls would probably reignite the fervor that existed for GoldenEye, like back in the 90s. I can't imagine that this wouldn't sell a lot of subscriptions if Nintendo just went the extra mile and forced a little bit more customization on us. I'm all for, purism in games, but I'm also all for having more control options. I think it would be better for it. But just picking up an N64 controller and hearing that traditional music just was such a huge dopamine hit, such a huge source of nostalgia for me that I was grinning ear to ear from the moment I heard the theme song kick in. And even though, I was kind of lamenting the jankiness of the controls, it felt right. It felt like what I remember. And so I'm so happy that we finally have this game back. It is a defining title for the N64, and it only makes sense for it to be on a service that centers around being able to play N64 games. So good on you, Nintendo, Rare, Microsoft, everybody involved. I'm so happy that we have this back, and it was a highlight of the month for me. All right, so we've gotten all the other stuff out of the way. I've talked about every other game that held my interest this month, but what was my game of the month? And I think you probably know, but I'm gonna say it out loud anyway because that's the title of this video. It's my game of the month. I'm talking about Fire Emblem Engage. I had a blast with this game, and I'm still having a blast with this game. I haven't finished it, but it is so good, so engrossing, and, well, so engaging that I know that this is probably going to be one of my favorite games of the year. It is going to be a tough race to beat this game. I know Daniel, it's going to be his game of the year. That's already predetermined, I think. But for me, I'm more of a casual Fire Emblem fan. I hopped on with Fire Emblem Awakening on the 3DS, and I've kind of followed the series since then, and some have been hits and some have been misses for me. Three Houses, though, was my favorite game of 2019. It was my game of the year that year. So will Fire Emblem Engage be my game of the year for 2023? It's too soon to tell. I mean, there's a lot of year ahead of us. It's only January, but what I can say now is that the combat has never looked better. I don't skip a single animation because I love seeing my characters battle it out, and I'm so protective of them, and I'm still kind of learning how to build relationships and navigate the Somnial and work within, the confines of this new game, because it is very different from Three Houses. It feels like Intelligent Systems tried to streamline the game a bit more, because I can understand wanting to have things move along a bit more quickly because there were parts, particularly towards the end of Three Houses, where I felt like, okay, I really don't want to go back to the academy and I don't want to go through the motions. I just want the story to continue. And I will say, as a minor criticism, I do feel like in some cases, it feels like they maybe overcorrected a bit and things are a bit more shallow than they need to be. I would like to have a little bit more interaction with the characters, but I'm also not at a point where I've fully learned every single system inside and out. There's still a lot for me to do, a lot for me to see, and a lot for me to explore. I'm just about a dozen chapters in, and I don't even know how many there are. I refuse to read anything about the game. I'm not going to look at guides. But this was an easy pickup for me. I bought the DLC immediately. I've been enjoying the emblem rings and learning how the characters work, and even the DLC characters, which I won't mention here in case you're unaware of what they are, but the story goes so incredibly hard. I mean, the motivations for Alir, which is the main character, are just so transparent from the get-go, but I keep expecting a twist. I keep waiting for it to happen, and I know it's going to, but I can't figure out what it is. I'm so excited to play more of this game and find out more about this world that they live in and why the emblems exist, and maybe to like hardcore Fire Emblem fans, they already know all the answers to these, but as someone who's been on the sidelines for a long time, I'm just getting excited. I absolutely adore this game. I can't wait to play more of it, and if you've never played Fire Emblem, don't worry, because they explain so much to you. You don't need to know the history and the lore of the series to get a ton of enjoyment out of this. I can't recommend it enough. I'm sure that this is going to be my top game of 2023 for at least a couple more months to come, unless there's surprises in February like there were this month that could blow me away. But I want to know what you think. What are your favorite games of January, I guess, or 2023 so far, if you want to be a bit hyperbolic about it, but what are your favorite games of this year so far? Or are you still trying to play games from your backlog? I've been doing a little bit of that myself, and it's fun, but I'm trying to keep up with what's coming out. So this month, Fire Emblem Engage, best game of the month. Pretty easy decision for me. Next month, we have a lot of exciting stuff. We have the PSVR 2 and the titles that launch with that. I'm sure that there will be more exciting stuff to come. I bet we even get a Nintendo Direct. And who knows, maybe we get a Shadow Drop game from Nintendo instead of Microsoft next month. That would be a nice surprise too. But for now, Fire Emblem Engage is at the top of the pecking order. I'm not going to stack rank games as we go because I feel like I just want to say what my favorite game was that month and move forward, and then at the end of the year we'll revisit all 12 of these videos and see what we came up with. But for now, I'm going to be playing Fire Emblem well into February, and I'm going to probably continue to pick that game apart and have fun with it and take my time. But it is fantastic. Even just a little bit of the way into the game, I can tell you it is going to be a contender for Game of the Year. It's just that good. It's that engrossing, and you can spend a whole ton of time with this. We have a lot of exciting stuff next month as well, with PSVR 2 launching and the slew of games that'll come with that. Horizon Call of the Mountain is a great reason to go back to that beautiful world that Aloy inhabits and actually see where the story goes, because I was very intrigued by the end of Forbidden West, but I'll save those impressions for next month once I get a chance to play those games. For now, I'm going to go back to Fire Emblem, and I'm going to try to beat it before February beats me down with even more releases to check out. It's a good problem to have, but anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all next time. Bye.